Hello and welcome to part 9 of me teaching you how to get better at a certain Roblox game. This time we have Blood and Iron. Now you may ask, well, Netanel the Great, how do I not make my country lose? Well, this video will explain how to not make your team, country, lose the game. So there's a lot of teams you can choose, but mainly the teams don't matter. What matters is what class you choose to get. So there's the officer, which handles the gun, as you can see here, and will probably try to shoot me, and he has a spyglass. Spyglass allows him to see farther range. He has a pistol, and this pistol is smaller than a musket. Basically smaller than what I have, aka a musket. It's basically smaller than a musket. So this basically means that he needs to get to short range to actually deal some damage, and so he needs to be near an enemy to actually be able to do any damage, because if he tries to do long range, it basically does not allow him to deal damage against enemies, because the amount of distance the bullet will travel is not gonna be far. So then, of course, there's the ranker. Now, the ranker class is a musket. He has a saber, which means that he can charge any enemies if you click the C button on the keyboard. That means that he can basically go not only range, but also melee range. But keep in mind that every single unit in the game has a melee weapon of their own, aka each and every single troop has a saber. So it doesn't matter if you're a bugler, an officer, a ranker, a militiaman, or a skirmisher, you still have a saber. So, what does the bugler do? The bugler boosts every single player that is reloading. So like, if someone reloads, he reloads faster because a bugler is near him. Now, bugler is not the only class that does it. Fifer, for example. This is basically bugler, except he has a fife. We have the British fifer, which is basically the British version of a fifer. And that's basically it. What the color barely does, he does nothing. He basically carries a flag. Sapper. Sapper basically is able to build stuff. This is my favorite class, as there's so many variations of where he can actually build and what he can actually build. He can basically bring a big dirt from here and put it here. He then can put sandbags there, and it basically allows troops to basically take cover from the entire musket shots. Or you can do this, which I think basically means that you can boost, or basically because you have nothing else to do and you're bored, you can just spam the barricade button. You can also become a soup shop, which is quite funny, and sell soup to the local musketmen. Now this is an RP part, you're not supposed to do that because that doesn't give you anything. And you have the barricade. The barricade, basically, a wall. A wall that's almost the same size as a human in the game. The thing is, you can't really take cover if someone shoots at your head, but if you press the C button, which is the crouch button, you basically kind of safe. So you can basically make a box. You're safe until an army of people get to your barricade and destroy it. That's the sapper class. Now, we're going to go on the categories what the classes are. I forgot about the drummer, which is basically the bugler, except he has a drum. Now, riflemen. Riflemen are basically rankers, except not only do they not have a bayonet on their musket, but they reload way slower than a normal ranker. However, I'll say that it's OP because it one-shots and has OP accuracy. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're in the middle of a grassfield map. You see a Prussian moving towards you, or a French if you're a Prussian. You shoot the guy from 300 meters away, and you are able to literally one-shot him, what a normal ranker cannot do. That is very OP, since basically most of the times when a ranker is able to aim perfectly at the person, he does not get a hit. It's a 30% chance of that happening. And rifleman almost always is able to do it perfectly. Almost always. And that's why it's my second favorite class. Now, moving on to the Cavalry. The Cavalry only appears in certain maps, which is mostly open maps that doesn't have that much houses. So in the open maps, what do you have? Cavalry, a category. There are 3 subcategories: Hussar, Lancer, and Dragoon. Hussars, very fast. He has a saber, and so he can damage troops that basically are on the open field. Lancers, basically hussars, but the musketmen have a lancer. They can pierce through other people easier than a normal hussar. And then we have a dragoon. This is basically hussar, since he basically has a saber, except he also wields a musket, or more specifically a dragoon. Now this dragoon sucks. Why does it suck? It's because its accuracy is worse than a pistol. You will never get a hit with it. So I don't recommend you choose a dragoon. You choose is either a hussar or lancer. You might choose a lancer, but keep in mind the release rate is slower than a hussar. Then there are the artillery. Artillery class is basically you're able to get on a cannon, reload it with your swab, put a cannonball into the cannon, shoot the cannon, and then clean it with a swab. This can be OP. Now there are two types of cannon shells. One is a canister. The canister basically shoots out multiple cannonballs, which can be OP if you suck at aiming. And it can also be very, very OP against Calvary, because Calvary will never suspect where to actually go, and basically get hit by the cannonball and die, along with the rider. And then what about the other shell? So then the other shell, I don't remember that name, but it shoots one singular cannonball. This one singular cannonball is guaranteed to kill someone. If you're good at aiming, you can use it. There is also one singular troop that I forgot, and it's exclusive to the Duchy of Warsaw and Russia. The Partisan and Pikemen. Partisan is basically a melee troop which has a random chance to get either a knife, a axe, or a big piece of branch. This might be good if you're playing in a smaller map, aka a map that does not have artillery cavalry, as that means that you have easier chance of being able to hit someone with a wood, and that means that basically the axe damage is going to be the same damage as the sapper. Of course, there's a random chance to spawn with either a wood, a axe, or a knife. A knife has the least amount of damage and the entire game, which is 20 damage. So basically, the knife might be useless, except it has better firing than both axe and the big piece of branch that I mentioned. But it still sucks. Then the wooden branch. It's basically the sapper axe, except it's a big piece of wood instead of an axe, and it does about 60 damage. And the other axe, which is used only by a partisan. So basically, the axe is basically the same shape as a sapper axe, except it does not deal as much damage as the sapper axe, but it still does a lot of damage. So keep that in mind. Next up is the pikeman. The pikeman has a pike and a sword. It's basically a lancer, except you're not on the cavalry, and instead you have a lance, more specifically a big pike, which is basically, it has a longer spear than what a lancer has. Before the video ends, what are the classes that you need to choose? Well, you will need to choose Riflemen, because they basically one-shot every single troop. Artillery, because they're very OP against cavalry. Sapper, because it can build stuff and build a funny shop. And cavalry, because they are very OP in the open field, as they can basically kill troops in 2 or 3 hits. So you have learned everything to become better in Blood and Iron.